You've heard us talk on Muscle Car of the Week about authentic or correct muscle cars, but what does that really mean, and how do you really know? Well, today we're going to take a look at this beautiful frost green 69 Camaro and show you what it means to authenticate a muscle car. It's important to be able to verify the authenticity of a car, especially if it's being presented as an original car with its original equipment intact. There are various professional services that can do this for you, or you can bring a car to the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals event for certification. So perhaps one of the first things you want to do is check the VIN of the car. You can run the VIN through a decoding service or a website to find out what equipment it was supposed to have. Next from the VIN would be to take a look at the trim tag. General Motors cars like this Camaro have a tag riveted to the firewall that says the color the car is supposed to be, the interior, and between the two of those you can figure out what model it is and oftentimes find out what engine and what option package it's supposed to have. In this case, our frost green Camaro is wearing the correct color and the correct color midnight green interior, and the trim tag suggests that this is a true SS 396 car, which comes with the 396 big block V8. So on the surface, it's got everything it's supposed to have. But to be authentic, are these the parts that it was born with? And that's where you have to dig a little deeper. And the way you do that is start looking at the numbers on the pieces. So right away you can see on the alternator there's a series of numbers stamped into the alternator casting. Well, these are going to show not only the part number but also a date code. And the date codes are important because if the date code translates to being newer than the car, well then this wasn't the right alternator for the car. Could be the correct part number, but just not the one it was born with. And same with the engine. Behind that alternator, there's a pad with numbers stamped into it, including part of the VIN of the car. So when we start talking about a numbers matching car, we're talking about an engine that was stamped at the factory to match the VIN so that we know this is the engine the car was born with. Other pieces include the distributor and the carburetor. Those all have numbers on them. And there are more detail items like numbers on spark plug wires and hoses. Now, some of those are available in the reproduction world. So you can get brand new hoses that are date coded 1969. So that's not always the dead giveaway. But by really looking at all those numbers under the hood, on the components themselves, and doing a little research, you can find if you've got the right stuff for your car. You'll often find additional numbers under the car. In this case, we're looking at the 4-speed manual transmission. There are identifying numbers cast in the side of the case, and there's also a specific vehicle identification number stamped on the back side of the case as well. You can do a quick visual to see if the car has the right equipment in the rear axle. This one has a 12-bolt rear axle. But there are also numbers that are cast in and stamped on these as well. You'll find casting numbers on the housing and specific numbers stamped on top of the tubes, and these refer to the gear ratio that the car was supposed to come with from the factory. The main VIN is on the dashboard on our 69 Camaro. By the late 60s, the federal government mandated that the VIN be visible through the windshield from outside the car. Earlier cars had door tags or the VIN stamped on the inside of the cowl by the door. But there are also hidden VINs even when there's a VIN on the dash. In this case, these Camaros have a VIN stamped behind the heater box on the firewall and maybe in a couple other places. So by paying attention to all those little details and doing some research and homework, well, you'll be guaranteed that the car you thought you bought is the one you actually did, and not just a base model 6-cylinder all jazzed up to look like an SS 396 or 426 Hemi car or whatever. I'm Kevin Ostie, and we will have something else cool for you next time on Muscle Car of the Week.